I stood outside my parents' house on Christmas Eve, rain soaking through my coat, and through the crack in the curtains I watched them huddle around the dining table like generals planning a war. Except the territory they were invading was mine. My $350,000 loft. The one I restored brick by brick with my own hands. My father was explaining squatters' rights. My mother was laughing about changing the locks while I was overseas. My sister was crying her rehearsed tears. And my brother-in-law? He was measuring my walls on his phone, planning where to mount his 70-inch TV. They weren't asking to borrow my home. They were scheming to steal it. And the worst part? They had no idea I was listening. They had no idea who they were dealing with. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments. And I will give you a heart. Let me tell you something about being the family ATM that nobody wants to admit out loud. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like one day your parents sit you down and say, "Hey, we've decided you're not actually our daughter anymore, you're just a walking, talking retirement fund with excellent credit." No, it's gradual. It's insidious. It's death by 1,000 small withdrawals until one day you wake up and realize you're not a person to them, you're a resource to be extracted, exploited, and eventually exhausted. My name is Morgan, and I'm a strategic risk analyst. That's a fancy way of saying I get paid six figures to look at complicated situations and identify what could go catastrophically wrong before it does. I assess threats. I calculate probabilities. I eliminate liabilities before they become disasters. It's what I do for Fortune 500 companies, and apparently, it's what I should have been doing for my own family 15 years ago. But here's the thing about being good at your job, it conditions you to see patterns everywhere. And the pattern I'd been watching unfold in my family for over a decade was textbook exploitation dressed up in the language of love. Let me paint you a picture of the Parker family dynamics, because I guarantee some of you are living this exact nightmare right now and just haven't admitted it to yourselves yet. There's Richard, my father. 58 years old, union worker, pension supposedly secure, but somehow always short on cash when bills come due. He's got that working class pride that manifests as entitlement, the kind of man who thinks because he worked hard his whole life, everyone owes him something. Especially his successful daughter. Then there's Susan, my mother. She's got a shopping addiction that would make most people's eyes water, but she calls it treating herself and self-care. Department store credit cards maxed out on clothes she wears once, home decor she doesn't need, gifts for people she's trying to impress. But it's fine because someone else, meaning me, has been paying the minimum balance for years to keep the collection agencies from calling. And then there's Sabrina. My younger sister. 29 years old, pregnant with her second child, married to Blake, who I can only describe as a professional failure with the confidence of a Fortune 500 CEO. Blake has started 3 businesses in 5 years. All 3 collapsed spectacularly. I funded 2 of them. $15,000 for a disruptive tech startup that disrupted absolutely nothing except my savings account. The company folded in 4 months, but somehow Blake walked away with a leased sports car and a networking dinner tab that could have fed a small village. Here's what nobody tells you about being the successful one in a dysfunctional family: your success doesn't make them proud. It makes them entitled. Every promotion I earned became their raise. Every bonus I received became their emergency fund. Every smart financial decision I made became their safety net. I wasn't building wealth for myself. I was building an empire for people who saw me as a colony to be harvested. Let me give you the accounting, because numbers don't lie even when family does. In the past 3 years alone, I had paid $8,000 to cover my father's pension gap, which turned out to be union dues and medical bills that mysteriously coincided with a cruise to Cabo that I saw photos of on Facebook. I had paid $12,000 for Sabrina's emergency credit card consolidation so she could buy a house. She didn't buy a house. She bought a purebred doodle that cost $3,000 and a complete wardrobe refresh because apparently, motherhood requires an entirely new aesthetic. I had been auto-paying my father's union dues for 5 years. 5 years. He thought it was just taken care of, like magic, like the pension fairy was handling it. I had been covering my mother's department store credit card minimums for 3 years, watching her rack up 4-figure monthly bills on things she didn't need while she complained about how tight money was. And Blake. Oh, Blake. I had paid for his crypto mining rig, his app development course, his business consultant who turned out to be his cousin who understood entrepreneurship. $40,000 down the drain, and he still looked at me at family dinners like I was the one who didn't understand how business worked. But here's the thing that makes this story different from your standard tale of family dysfunction. I knew exactly what they were doing. I'm a risk analyst. I can spot a bad investment from a mile away. I can calculate the probability of return on any venture within a 5% margin of error. I knew they were using me. I knew they saw me as a resource rather than a relative. So why did I keep paying? Because I had fallen into the trap that destroys more capable people than any other psychological weapon in the narcissist's arsenal. I had confused their need for me with love. I had normalized the cruelty. I had told myself that family takes care of family, that being the capable one meant carrying the weight, that their demands were just part of being successful. I had spent 15 years trying to earn something they were never going to give me, genuine affection that wasn't transactional. Let me take you back to that Christmas Eve, because that's where this story really begins. I had flown in from a client meeting in San Francisco, caught an earlier flight than I'd told them about because I genuinely missed them. I know, Stockholm Syndrome is real, people. The Seattle rain was coming down in sheets, that relentless Pacific Northwest rain that soaks through everything and makes the whole world feel damp and claustrophobic. I stood on their front porch, my coat heavy with water, my hand reaching for the brass knocker, when I heard voices through the door. Not regular dinner conversation voices. Conspiratorial voices. Planning voices. Voices that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up because my professional instincts recognized the tone before my brain processed the words. I should have knocked. A normal person would have knocked. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the risk analyst in me recognizing a threat assessment situation. Maybe it was 15 years of conditioning finally cracking. Maybe it was just dumb luck. Whatever it was, I stepped to the side of the door where the curtain didn't quite meet the window frame, and I looked inside. The scene I witnessed is burned into my memory with the clarity of a high-definition photograph. They were gathered around the dining table, all of them. My parents, my sister, Blake. But they weren't setting the table for Christmas dinner. They were huddled over papers. Blueprints. Floor plans. My floor plans. I recognized them immediately because I had drawn them myself when I was planning the restoration of my loft. The historic Pioneer Square building that I had bought as a gutted shell and spent 2 years of my life restoring. The exposed brick I had cleaned by hand with a toothbrush and specialized solution. The original hardwood floors I had refinished myself, on my knees, during weekends and evenings after 60-hour work weeks. The custom industrial windows I had commissioned. The place that represented every sacrifice I had made, every hour I had worked, every compromise I had rejected. They had my floor plans. And they were marking them up. Morgan makes 6 figures, Blake was saying, his voice carrying that particular tone of aggressive confidence that only comes from men who have failed upward their entire lives. She doesn't need 2,000 square feet just for herself. It's excessive. I watched my sister dab at her eyes with a tissue. The same tissue dabbing move she'd been doing since we were kids whenever she wanted something. Sabrina had perfected the art of weaponized fragility, tears on demand, trembling lip, hand on her pregnant belly for maximum sympathy. And my parents ate it up like it was Christmas dinner. But what if she says no? My mother asked, and for a second, one tiny, stupid second, I thought maybe she was going to be the voice of reason. Maybe Susan was going to say, we can't just take our daughters home without asking. But that second died fast. She won't get the chance, my father said, and the casualness of it, the matter-of-fact way he said it, that's what really got me. This wasn't a hypothetical discussion. This was a finalized plan. Once you're inside and get mail delivered there, you establish residency. Squatters' rights. She'd have to go through formal eviction. In this city, that takes 6 months minimum. 6 months minimum. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike and told me I could be anything I wanted to be, was casually explaining to my sister and brother-in-law how to legally steal my home using squatters' rights laws designed to protect vulnerable tenants from predatory landlords. And she's going on that deployment to Tokyo in January, my mother added, her voice actually cheerful. Actually pleased. 3 full months. We'll have the nursery painted and the locks changed before she even lands. The nursery. They were planning to turn my home office, the room with my proprietary data servers, my client files, my professional certifications on the wall, into a nursery. And change the locks so I couldn't get back in. Let me ask you something, and I really want you to think about this. At what point does family stop being family and start being a criminal conspiracy? Because what I was witnessing wasn't people who loved me making a difficult request. This was a heist. This was Ocean's 11, except instead of George Clooney and Brad Pitt, it was my deadbeat brother-in-law and my parents planning to rob the one person who had been keeping them financially afloat for over a decade. I stood there in the rain, water dripping from my hair, my expensive coat soaked through, and I felt something shift inside my chest. It wasn't anger. Not yet. Anger is hot and immediate and makes you do stupid things. This was something colder. This was the feeling you get when a spreadsheet finally balances and you see the true numbers for the first time. This was clarity. They had forgotten who I was. They'd spent so many years treating me like an ATM that they'd forgotten the ATM had a brain. That the person they'd been withdrawing from for 15 years was someone who got paid enormous amounts of money to identify threats and neutralize them before they became catastrophic. They'd made a critical miscalculation. They'd assumed my compliance. They'd banked on my conditioning. They'd bet everything on the belief that I was too well-trained, too desperate for their approval, too committed to family to ever actually fight back. They were about to learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. I took a breath. The cold December air filled my lungs. I arranged my features into the same pleasant, accommodating expression I'd been wearing for 15 years. And I pushed the door open. "Merry Christmas," I said, stepping into the house like I was walking into a trap they thought they were setting for me, not realizing they'd just stepped into mine. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was heavy. Suffocating. Like the moment before a building collapses when everything goes still and you can feel the structure failing even though nothing's moved yet. 4 guilty faces snapped toward me. For maybe half a second, I saw the raw panic of people caught in the act. The pure, unfiltered terror of conspirators who just realized the target walked in during the planning phase. Then, so fast it was almost impressive, the mask slammed back into place. "Morgan, sweetheart." My mother rushed forward, wiping her hands on her apron even though she hadn't been cooking, her expression transforming from conspiratorial malice to maternal warmth in the time it took her to cross the room. "We didn't expect you until at least 7. The traffic must have been awful." I let her hug me. It felt like hugging a pillowcase stuffed with rocks, lumpy, uncomfortable, and fundamentally wrong. The house smelled like pot roast and damp wool, that suffocating humid scent that clung to the back of your throat. It was such a stark contrast to my loft, my glass sanctuary where the air was always filtered and cool and smelled faintly of cedar and rain. Here, the walls felt like they were closing in. And they were plastered with photos. Photos everywhere. But not of me. Of Sabrina. Sabrina at prom in a dress I'd helped pay for. Sabrina graduating from the college whose tuition I'd covered when my parents came up short. Sabrina's wedding that I'd been asked to contribute to because family helps family. I wasn't on these walls. I was absent from their gallery of important moments, just like I was absent from their considerations as an actual human being with feelings and rights and boundaries. I caught an earlier flight, I lied smoothly, professionally. I couldn't wait to see everyone. My father cleared his throat, stepping away from the table where seconds ago he'd been teaching my brother-in-law how to commit housing fraud. He looked at me with the wary appraisal of a man who owes money to a loan shark and knows the payment's overdue. "Good to see you, Morgan. You're looking successful." "Strategic risk pays well, Dad," I said, keeping my voice even, pleasant. Then I looked past him to the couch where Sabrina was nested in blankets like a bird protecting its eggs, one hand on her pregnant belly, eyes wide and watery. Beside her, Blake lounged with a beer he definitely hadn't paid for, and gave me a smirk that said he thought he was smarter than me. This man who had failed at every single venture he'd ever attempted was smirking at me like he'd just won something. I walked further into the room, setting my wet coat on the rack. My internal risk assessment software was running diagnostics in the background. Hostile environment. Multiple bad actors. Leverage ratio 0. Probability of successful negotiation, none. I watched them scramble to clear the table, moving papers that looked suspiciously like my floor plans. They were so sloppy. So transparent. So convinced of their own cleverness that they didn't realize they were performing a heist in front of the person they were robbing. And as I watched my mother fuss over Sabrina, bringing her a footstool while I stood there dripping wet and ignored, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. They didn't see a person standing in their living room. They saw a resource. A natural deposit of cash and real estate to be mined until depletion. For years, I had categorized their behavior as demanding or needy. I had rationalized it as the cost of being the capable one in the family. But I'd been wrong. This wasn't about need. This was about entitlement. They had conditioned me since childhood to believe my value lay solely in my utility. My success wasn't my achievement to be celebrated, it was their communal asset they just hadn't fully liquidated yet. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't Sabrina's sister. I was their retirement plan, their safety net, their emergency fund, and now, apparently, their real estate portfolio. And here's the thing about treating a person like a resource: you don't ask a resource for permission. You just take it. "Sit down, Morgan," my mother said, gesturing to the hard wooden chair at the edge of the room while the comfortable spots were occupied by everyone else. "We have so much to talk about. Especially with your big trip coming up." I sat. I crossed my legs. I let a small, pleasant smile touch my lips. And I said the words that would set everything in motion: "Yes, we certainly do." My father leaned forward with the gravity of a man about to ask for a kidney, and I knew the pitch before he even opened his mouth. See, when you've been funding someone else's life for 15 years, you learn their patterns. You recognize the setup. The concerned expression. The careful tone. The way they frame their demands as if they're doing you a favor by letting you help them. "Morgan," he began, "we've been doing some thinking. About the baby. About logistics." Logistics. That's what he called it. Like my home was a warehouse and they were planning a shipment. I let him talk. I watched his mouth move, heard the words about Sabrina's high-risk pregnancy and the need for a stress-free environment, about how their house wasn't suitable with all these stairs, about how hard it was for young families these days. And while he performed this rehearsed monologue, my mind was somewhere else entirely. I was opening a mental ledger I'd been keeping locked in the back of my brain for years. You know what's funny about being a risk analyst? You can't turn it off. Even with family, especially with family, you're always calculating, always tracking, always maintaining a running balance sheet of inputs and outputs. And my family's ledger was written in nothing but red ink. Let me walk you through the accounting, because I want you to understand the scope of what we're talking about here. This wasn't just helping out family occasionally. This was systematic financial exploitation disguised as love. 3 years ago, Blake's disruptive tech startup. $15,000 for seed capital. He pitched it at Thanksgiving, and I remember sitting there listening to him talk about disrupting the food delivery space with blockchain technology, and thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But Sabrina was crying about how hard it was to support Blake's dreams, and my mother was saying how important it is to invest in family, and my father was talking about how young people just need a chance. So I wrote the check. The startup lasted 4 months. 4 months. The money evaporated into networking dinners that happened at steakhouses I couldn't afford when I was his age, and a leased BMW that he needed to look successful for investors. The business collapsed without ever signing a single client. Return on investment, 0. Emotional return, negative infinity. 2.5 years ago, my father's pension gap. $8,000 to cover union dues and unexpected medical bills. He called me crying, my father actually crying, saying they were going to lose the house if he couldn't cover these essential expenses. I wired the money that same day. 3 weeks later, I'm scrolling through Facebook and see photos of my parents on a cruise to Cabo. Cocktails on the deck. Sunset dinners. My mother wearing a new swimsuit with the tags probably still on it. When I asked about it, my father said they needed to de-stress and a friend had given them a great deal. The cruise cost more than the money I'd sent them. 2 years ago, Sabrina's emergency credit card consolidation. $12,000 to save her credit score so she could buy a house. She was 27, married, trying to be responsible, and she'd gotten in over her head. I understood that. I'd been there. So I paid off her cards, gave her a lecture about financial responsibility that she nodded through while looking at her phone, and felt good about helping my little sister get on track. She didn't buy a house. She bought a purebred doodle named Chardonnay that cost $3,000 and a complete wardrobe refresh because apparently becoming a dog mom requires an entirely new aesthetic. When I asked about the house, she said they'd decided to wait because the market was too uncertain. But Chardonnay's Instagram account had 5,000 followers, so at least my $12,000 went towards something meaningful. And then there were the invisible costs. The ones they didn't even know about because I'd set them to autopay and never mentioned them. My mother's department store credit card. I'd been paying the minimum balance for 3 years. Not because she asked, but because the collection agencies started calling me as her emergency contact, and I was tired of the harassment. For $1,000 in minimum payments to keep her shopping addiction from destroying her credit. My father's union dues. 5 years of automatic payments. He thought the union just deducted it from his pension automatically. He had no idea I was covering it because his pension didn't actually cover what he thought it did. Blake's crypto mining rig loan. $6,000 that I'd bought from the original lender to keep him out of court. He thought the debt had been forgiven due to some technicality. The technicality was me. Sabrina's health insurance. The gold tier plan she insisted she needed for the pregnancy. $1,800 a month. For 6 months. Because Blake was between opportunities, which is code for unemployed but too proud to admit it. I added it up once during a sleepless night, and the total made me physically ill. Over $100,000 in the past 5 years alone. $100,000 that I'd worked for, saved, invested wisely, handed over to people who treated it like monopoly money because they'd never had to earn it themselves. But here's what really destroyed me about this moment. Sitting in their humid living room while they prepared to pitch stealing my home, I knew this was different. This wasn't asking for money. This wasn't even demanding money. This was planning to take the one thing that represented everything I'd built independently of them. The loft wasn't just real estate. It was proof that I could create something beautiful, something permanent, something that was mine in a life where everything else had been communal property for them to claim whenever they wanted. My father was still talking. And since you'll be in Tokyo for 3 months, your beautiful loft will just be sitting there empty, gathering dust. Gathering dust. Like my home was an unused storage unit instead of a carefully curated sanctuary. Ideally, Sabrina added, clutching a throw pillow like it was a life preserver, we would just need it until the baby comes. Just to get settled. The stairs here, they're so hard on my hips. The stairs. The stairs they'd lived with for 29 years were suddenly unbearable now that they'd seen my floor plans and realized they could have something better. Something they hadn't earned. Something that was mine. I looked at them. Really looked at them. My father with his expectant expression, already convinced I'd say yes because I always said yes. My mother nodding along, mentally redecorating my space. Blake examining his fingernails, bored by the whole charade because he already considered it done. And Sabrina, my baby sister, looking at me with those wide eyes that used to make me want to protect her from everything, now just making me feel tired. They weren't asking. This was a demand dressed up as a favor. They were banking on 15 years of conditioning. They were betting the house, my house, that I was too polite, too desperate for approval, too well trained to say no. In the past, I would have argued. I would have explained about my home office with proprietary data servers that couldn't be moved. I would have mentioned liability insurance, security concerns, the fact that I needed my space to remain my space. I would have fought, and they would have worn me down with guilt, with tears, with accusations of being selfish and heartless and forgetting where I came from. And eventually, I would have written a check for a hotel, or a down payment on an apartment, or first and last month's rent somewhere, anything to make the emotional manipulation stop. But I wasn't that person anymore. Something had shifted the moment I heard them plodding through the door. Something had broken, or maybe finally healed, I still can't tell which. I took a slow sip of the water I'd been offered in a chipped mug, watching them watch me, and let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. I watched Blake fidget. Watched my father crack his knuckles. Watched my mother's smile start to falter. Then I said the words that would detonate everything, you know what? That makes sense. The shock in the room was physical. You could feel it like a temperature drop. Sabrina's tissue dabbing stopped mid-dab. My mother's mouth fell open slightly. Blake's beer paused halfway to his lips. They'd expected resistance. They'd prepared arguments. They'd sharpened their guilt weapons and loaded their emotional manipulation guns. And I just agreed. You're right about the stairs, I continued, my voice thoughtful, reasonable. And the loft is serene. It would be perfect for a nursery. All that natural light. Exactly. My mother recovered first, clapping her hands together like I'd just announced I was funding another one of Blake's doomed ventures. Oh, Morgan, I knew you'd understand. Family takes care of family. Family takes care of family. The words that had been used to extract $100,000 from me over 5 years. The words that meant you give, we take, and we never say thank you because that's just what family does. I can leave the keys under the mat on the 28th, I said. I fly out early on the 29th. You can have the run of the place. We'll take good care of it, Blake said, puffing his chest out, already mentally measuring my walls for his gaming setup. Don't you worry about a thing. I won't, I said. And I meant it. Because I wasn't worried. I was calculating. I reached into my bag and pulled out a bottle of wine I'd brought, a $300 Barolo that I'd originally planned to open with them to celebrate Christmas. Now it had a different purpose. Open this, Dad, I said, handing it to him. He took it, examining the label with the performative appreciation of someone who thinks price equals taste but couldn't tell a Barolo from a barefoot if his life depended on it. Exceptional, Morgan. You really didn't have to. I wanted to, I said. And I watched him pour. Watched them raise their glasses. Watched them toast to family, to new beginnings, to their victory. They were drinking to their new home, their free luxury accommodation, their successful manipulation of the family ATM. I was drinking to something else entirely. I was drinking to liberation. See, here's what they didn't know. What they couldn't know because they'd spent so many years seeing me as a resource instead of a person. I don't get mad. I assess risk. And I eliminate liabilities. The risk assessment was complete. The liability was identified, and the elimination protocol was about to begin. We spent the next hour doing the Christmas dinner theater, passing dishes, making small talk. Blake bragging about his latest opportunity, a cryptocurrency consulting thing that sounded like a pyramid scheme had a baby with a Ponzi scheme. Sabrina talking about baby names and nursery themes. My mother discussing her book club, which I now realized was probably code for shopping therapy sessions. My father holding court about union politics that I'd been indirectly funding for half a decade. I played my role perfectly. Nodded in the right places. Asked follow-up questions. Laughed at Blake's jokes that weren't funny. Complimented Sabrina's maternity dress. Thanked my mother for dinner. I was the good daughter. The successful one. The generous one. The one who always came through. And the whole time, my mind was 3 steps ahead, running through scenarios, calculating timelines, identifying the exact sequence of moves that would turn their victory into their destruction. At 9 o'clock, I pleaded exhaustion from the flight. My mother hugged me, whispering thank you, sweetheart, like I'd just given her a thoughtful gift instead of agreeing to let them steal my home. My father shook my hand like we'd just concluded a business deal, which I guess we had, just not the one he thought. Sabrina waved from the couch, too comfortable to get up, already acting like a woman who owned property she hadn't paid for. And Blake nodded at me with this smirk that said he thought he'd won. That he'd finally gotten one over on the successful sister-in-law who made him feel small just by existing. I walked out into the rain. The door clicked shut behind me. And I didn't head for my car immediately. I stood there on the sidewalk, letting the cold water wash over me, feeling the weight of 15 years of accumulated resentment finally crystallize into something clear and sharp and purposeful. They thought they'd just secured a luxury asset. They didn't realize they'd just triggered the demolition sequence. When I got back to my loft, I didn't turn on the lights. I walked straight through the darkness to my home office, the room they were already mentally painting pastel yellow, and pulled up my security system. See, here's something my family didn't know about me, something they never bothered to ask about because they weren't interested in my life beyond how it could benefit them. My loft has cameras. 6 of them. High definition, motion activated, cloud backed up cameras that record everything. I installed them after a break-in in the building 2 years ago, and I'd never mentioned them to anyone because why would I? They were for security. For protection. For evidence if something went wrong. Something had gone very, very wrong. I scrolled back through the footage. 48 hours. December 22nd at 2:14 p.m. And there it was. The smoking gun. The proof that this wasn't a desperate family making a difficult request. This was premeditated theft. My front door swung open. My father walked in first, looking over his shoulder like a burglar, which is exactly what he was. He held a key, a spare I had never given him. A key he must have stolen from my bag during Thanksgiving while I was doing dishes, while I was serving them, while I was playing my assigned role as the family servant. Behind him came Blake, holding a tape measure like this was an HGTV show and not a crime in progress. It's bigger than I thought, Blake's voice came through crystal clear on the audio. He walked to the center of my living room, scuffing his boots on my restored hardwood floors that I'd refinished on my hands and knees. We could fit a 70-inch screen on that wall easily. Focus, Blake, my father said, walking straight to my office without hesitation. Like he'd been planning this. Like he'd memorized the layout. He pushed open the door and stared at my workspace. My dual monitors. My ergonomic chair. My framed certifications on the exposed brick wall that I'd spent 3 weeks restoring with a toothbrush and specialized cleaner. He didn't see a career. He didn't see accomplishment. He saw square footage. This is it, Richard said. This is the nursery. The brick is kind of ugly, Blake commented, tapping the wall I'd loved, the wall that represented hours of labor and historical preservation. Too industrial. Sabrina wants something softer. Maybe we can drywall over it. Or just paint it white. Paint over original 1920s brick. Paint over the history I'd preserved. Paint over the work I'd done. Paint over me. Good idea, my father agreed. Not a moment's hesitation. Morgan won't notice. She's never here anyway. By the time she gets back from Tokyo, she'll get used to it. She'll get used to it. She always adjusts. Those words. Those specific words echoed in my head like a gunshot. She always adjusts. That was it. That was the epitaph for our relationship. That was how they saw me. Not as someone with boundaries, with rights, with feelings. As someone infinitely flexible who would bend and bend and bend until there was nothing left of me except the shape they needed me to be. I closed the laptop. Sat in the darkness of my office, my soon-to-be former office, and felt something click into place. A decision that once made, couldn't be unmade. They hadn't just planned to use my space. They'd planned to erase me from it. They'd planned to paint over everything I'd built, literally and figuratively, and they'd bet everything on the assumption that I would just adjust. That I'd come home from Tokyo to find my office destroyed, my locks changed, my home occupied, and I'd just accept it because that's what I always did. I'd write them a check for a new place or let them stay or somehow accommodate their invasion because family takes care of family. But here's what they'd miscalculated: there's a limit to human flexibility. There's a point where you either break or you break free. And I'd just found mine. I picked up my phone. It was almost 10 p.m., but venture capitalists don't sleep, especially not the ones who hunt opportunities for sport. I dialed Julian Reeves. We'd met at a real estate investment conference 2 years ago, and he'd been trying to buy my loft ever since. Made me 3 separate offers, each one more generous than the last. I'd turned them all down because the loft was my sanctuary, my achievement, my proof that I could create something permanent and beautiful. Now it was just a crime scene waiting to happen. Morgan, Julian's voice was smooth, surprised. This is late for a risk assessment call. I have a proposition, I said. You still interested in the Pioneer Square loft? Silence. Heavy, pregnant silence. Then, you're selling? I thought that place was your soul. It was, I said, my voice steady, emotionless. Now it's a liability. I need to liquidate. $360,000. Cash. That's 60 under market. I heard a chair shift. The rustle of movement. I had his full attention. What's the catch? 2 conditions, I said. First, we close in 48 hours. Second, I need an immediate gut renovation scheduled. I want a demolition crew there at 10 a.m. on December 28th. I want the walls down, the floors ripped up, the plumbing exposed. I want it uninhabitable by lunch. Another pause. Longer this time. You want me to destroy a historic restoration? I want you to remodel, I corrected. I know you've always hated the layout. Make it open concept. Make it yours. Just start the demo on the 28th at 10 a.m. sharp. Someone hurt you, Julian said. Not a question. Someone underestimated me, I replied. Do we have a deal? Send the contract, he said. I'll wire the deposit tonight. I hung up. Looked around my loft one last time. Traced the lines of the brick I'd loved, the floors I'd polished, the space I'd created. It was just a building now. Just a shell. The sanctuary died the moment they walked in uninvited. Now it was just collateral damage in a war I didn't start but was definitely going to finish. And as I sat there in the darkness, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago: you can't preserve what people are determined to destroy. But you can damn sure control the demolition. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in strategic asset liquidation, and let me tell you, when a risk analyst decides to burn it all down, we don't just strike a match and walk away. We calculate the blast radius. We plan the controlled demolition. We make sure that when the dust settles, we're the only ones still standing. I didn't pack like someone moving out. I packed like someone sanitizing a crime scene. Every item that held actual value, my proprietary servers with 5 years of client data. The art I'd collected from local galleries, the handwoven rugs from that trip to Morocco, my grandmother's jewelry that had somehow stayed with me instead of being borrowed by Sabrina, everything went into a climate-controlled storage unit registered under an LLC my father would never find. By noon on December 26th, the loft was a hollow shell. The echo of my footsteps on the hardwood was the only sound left. But here's the thing, I wasn't leaving them an empty apartment. That would be too suspicious. They expected a fully furnished luxury suite, and I was going to give them exactly what they deserved. A theater set. A facade. A lie as carefully constructed as the one they'd been living for 15 years. I went to the Goodwill outlet on the edge of town, the one where they sell furniture by the pound, where everything smells like disappointment and broken dreams. And I bought them a home. I found a sofa that smelled like wet dog and cigarette smoke, with a spring in the middle cushion that would absolutely impale whoever was unlucky enough to sit there. Perfect for Blake's football viewing parties. I bought a dining table with one leg shorter than the others, guaranteed to spill every drink placed on it. Great for family dinners. I bought mattresses that felt like bags of gravel wrapped in sandpaper. Box springs that squeaked like a horror movie soundtrack. Sheets with thread counts so low they were practically cheese graters. I staged that loft with the precision of a set designer building a slum. I put a scratched-up coffee table right where Blake wanted his 70-inch TV. I replaced my high-end Italian espresso machine with a drip coffee maker that leaked. I hung cheap prints on the walls, the kind you get at Home Goods clearance, covering the spaces where my actual art had been. From a distance, with the lights off, it looked habitable. But the moment you touched anything, sat on anything, tried to use anything, the illusion crumbled. It was a physical manifestation of our relationship. A facade of comfort masking absolute decay. Then came the coup de grace. The Trojan horse. The gift that would keep on giving. I went into the walk-in closet in the master bedroom, the room Sabrina had already claimed for herself in her mind, and I stacked 4 large boxes on the top shelf. I wrapped them in expensive gold paper, the kind that costs $12 a roll. I attached elegant name tags in calligraphy: Dad, Mom, Sabrina, Blake. They would see these boxes and assume they were housewarming gifts. High thread count sheets maybe. Baby gear. Kitchen gadgets. The kinds of things successful daughters give to family members moving into luxury accommodations. They would tear into them with greedy entitlement, already mentally cataloging their haul. But inside those boxes wasn't a single item of value. Inside was the bill. The itemized, comprehensive, 15-year bill for services rendered. Richard's box contained 5 years of receipts for his union dues, every single payment I'd made, with dates, amounts, and account numbers. Alongside them was a notice of payment cancellation, effective immediately, and a forwarding notice to the union that he would need to set up his own payment plan or face suspension. Enjoy explaining that to your buddies at the hall, Dad. Susan's box was even better. I included every statement for that department store credit card she thought had unlimited credit. Every $4,000 month of shoes she wore once and clothes she forgot about. Every minimum payment I'd made to keep the collection agencies from destroying her credit score. And right on top, printed on official letterhead, was a notice from the credit card company that the account was now solely in her name, with a current balance of $47,000 and a minimum payment due of $4,800 by January 15th. I also included the phone number for a debt consolidation service. They're very helpful. I've heard. Blake's box was my personal favorite. Inside were the loan documents for every failed venture I'd funded. the tech startup, the crypto mining rig, the app development course, the business consultant who was actually his cousin. All of it itemized and documented. He thought those debts had been forgiven, written off, dissolved by the universe because he was special. They hadn't been forgiven. I had bought them. I had purchased his debts from the original lenders to keep him out of court and keep Sabrina from crying at every family dinner. And now I was transferring those debts back to him. $14,600 due in 30 days. The paperwork was all legal, all binding, all his problem now. And Sabrina. Sweet, fragile, perpetually victimized Sabrina. Her box contained the cancellation notice for her health insurance, that gold-tier plan she insisted she needed for the baby, the one that cost $1,800 a month, the one I'd been paying for 6 months because Blake was between opportunities. The cancellation was effective January 1st. In the box, I included a helpful guide to Washington State's healthcare marketplace and a note suggesting she apply quickly because coverage gaps during pregnancy can be challenging. I also included the statement for her credit card consolidation, the $12,000 I'd paid off 2 years ago. Turns out, when you pay off someone's debt, you can structure it as a loan if you want to. And I had. She owed me $12,000, plus interest, with the first payment due February 1st. I wasn't just evicting them from my home. I was evicting them from my payroll. For 15 years, I had been the invisible dam holding back the floodwaters of their own financial incompetence. Today, I was demolishing the dam and letting nature take its course. I placed the final bow on Sabrina's box, a beautiful silk ribbon that cost more than the entire contents. Then I walked to the kitchen counter and wrote a note on my personalized stationery, the expensive kind with my name embossed at the top, "Welcome home. Make yourselves comfortable. You've earned everything that's coming to you." And I placed the keys under the welcome mat, exactly where I'd promised. The only promise I actually kept. Then I walked out into the December rain, got into my car, and drove to the airport. I didn't look back at the building. It wasn't my sanctuary anymore. It was just a blast zone, and the timer was counting down. December 28th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I was sitting in the first-class lounge at SeaTac Airport, sipping a mimosa that cost more than Blake's monthly contribution to society, which is to say, $12. My laptop was open to the security feed I'd kept active. I'd told Julian's team about the cameras. They were fine with it. In fact, they appreciated the documentation for insurance purposes. The feed showed my former living room. They'd moved in the night before, just like I'd predicted. The place looked like a frat house after parents' weekend. Pizza boxes stacked on the scratch dining table that was already tilting. Beer bottles on the coffee table that I'd specifically chosen because it had water damage and a wobbly leg. Blake was asleep on the dog-smelling sofa, mouth open, drooling onto a cushion that absolutely had been used as a chew toy by someone's incontinent pet. Sabrina waddled into frame, hand on her lower back, face twisted in discomfort. "This mattress is awful," she complained, her voice tinny through the speakers. "I think it has lumps." "Where did Morgan keep the good stuff?" "Probably in storage," Susan said, entering from the kitchen with coffee in one of my chipped mugs. "We'll buy new furniture once we sell some of this junk." I can't believe she lived like this. No wonder she's single. No wonder she's single. The woman who had been paying her credit card bills for 3 years was analyzing my life choices while standing in my stolen home drinking my coffee. I took a slow sip of champagne. "Enjoy it while it lasts, mother." At 10:02 a.m., the front door didn't just open. It was unlocked by a key I'd given to Marcus Stone, head of security for Apex Development. The door swung wide, revealing 3 men in dark suits and a construction crew of 6 workers in hard hats, carrying sledgehammers, crowbars, and the kind of equipment you bring when you're about to make something uninhabitable. My family froze like deer in headlights. Blake scrambled up from the couch, wiping drool from his chin, beer belly hanging over his sweatpants. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus Stone stepped forward. 6'3", former military, with the kind of voice that doesn't rise but somehow makes you want to stand at attention. I'm Marcus Stone, head of security for Apex Development. You are trespassing on an active construction site. Trespassing? Richard's laugh was pure arrogant attorney energy, the same laugh he used to intimidate waitresses who got his order wrong. My daughter owns this loft. We have her permission. Morgan King sold this property on December 26, Stone said, his voice flat and unyielding. The new owner has ordered an immediate gut renovation. Demo starts now. He signaled the crew. The first sledgehammer hit the drywall with a sound like a gunshot. Crack. Plaster exploded into the air, dust blooming like a mushroom cloud. Stop! Sabrina screamed, clutching her belly in that performative way she had. I'm pregnant. You can't do this. You have 5 minutes to vacate, Stone said, checking his watch with the casual precision of a man who'd done this before. After that, anything left inside becomes debris. I'm calling the police. Richard pulled out his phone, his face turning that dangerous shade of purple that meant his blood pressure was spiking. This is an illegal eviction. You have to give 30 days notice. There is no lease, Stone countered, his voice still calm, still professional. There is no tenancy agreement. You are squatters in a commercial development zone. And the police are already on their way, we called them before we arrived. They'll be here in approximately 3 minutes to assist with your removal. Another hammer smashed into the kitchen island I'd installed myself 2 years ago. Crash. Granite chips flew like shrapnel. I watched on my laptop screen, and I felt something strange. Not satisfaction exactly. Not joy. Something colder and clearer. I was witnessing a psychological phenomenon in real time, the narcissistic injury. The moment when people who've built their entire identity on exploiting someone else suddenly realize that person is gone. They weren't screaming because they were homeless. They had my parents' house. They were screaming because their reality was fracturing. Because for 15 years, they'd operated under the fundamental assumption that I existed to serve them. That my resources were their birthright. That my boundaries were negotiable. That my compliance was guaranteed. By selling the loft, I hadn't just taken away a building. I had shattered their worldview. I had proved that the resource could think, could plan, could fight back. Where is she? Susan shrieked, grabbing Stone by the lapel, which was a mistake because one of his team members immediately stepped forward to remove her hand. Where is my daughter? She wouldn't do this. She loves us. She sold the property, ma'am, Stone said, adjusting his suit jacket. She's gone. Look at this. Blake was in the closet now, holding up one of the gold-wrapped boxes. His voice cracked with something between hope and desperation. She left us gifts. She wants us here. He tore open the box labeled Blake. Papers spilled out. I watched his face change in real time. Confusion. Then recognition. Then pure, unadulterated horror. It's a bill, he whispered. It's the loans. All the loans. She stopped paying them. They're mine now. Richard grabbed his box. Susan grabbed hers. The sound of tearing paper mixed with the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of the demolition crew taking down the north wall, exposing the building's skeleton to the December air. She canceled the credit card, Susan gasped, staring at a statement that showed $47,000 in debt. The minimum payment is $4,000. $4,000. Where am I supposed to get $4,000? My insurance, Sabrina wailed, holding up her cancellation notice like it was a death sentence. She canceled my insurance. The baby. I don't have a doctor anymore. It was chaos. It was a symphony of consequences crashing down on people who had never faced a single consequence in their entire relationship with me. The walls were literally coming down around them, exposing the rot underneath, and they were finally understanding what I'd known for years: you can't build a life on someone else's foundation without their permission. Eventually, the ground gives way. Out! Stone's voice cut through the pandemonium. Now! I watched them scramble. They didn't grab clothes. They didn't grab the furniture I'd left them. They grabbed the boxes. The bills. The evidence of their debts. As if holding the paper would somehow make the money reappear. They ran into the hallway like refugees fleeing a war zone, chased by the sound of my former life being demolished. As the camera feed showed the construction crew pulling down the exposed brick I'd loved, the brick Richard wanted to paint over, I felt the last bit of tension leave my shoulders. It was done. The parasite had realized the host was dead. And the host had already boarded a flight to Tokyo. 6 months later, I was sitting in Kyoto, and let me tell you, rain falls differently here. It's gentler. More rhythmic. It's not the oppressive Seattle downpour that soaks through everything and makes you feel trapped. This rain cleanses. I was renting a traditional machiya, a wooden townhouse that smelled like tatami mats and aged cedar. My laptop was closed. My phone was on silent. I'd spent 6 months in Japan doing the work I was hired to do, but more importantly, doing the work I needed to do, learning how to exist without the weight of people who saw me as a resource rather than a human being. The courier had delivered a letter an hour ago. Hand-addressed in frantic, sloping handwriting I recognized immediately. Sabrina. I hadn't opened it right away. I'd finished my tea first. Watched a koi fish navigate the stone pond in the garden. Let the rain create its patterns on the wooden engawa. Only then, with a sense of detached curiosity, did I slice open the envelope. Morgan, Mom says we aren't supposed to write. Dad says you're dead to us. Blake says you're a sociopath. But I need you to know what you did. What I did. Not what they did. What I did. We were evicted from Blake's mother's basement 3 months ago. She found out about the debts you stopped paying. She checked her own credit and discovered Blake had used her name too. She threw us out. So Blake had been committing identity theft against his own mother. Somehow, I wasn't surprised. We're staying in a motel off the highway. The boys sleep on the floor. I tried to use the health insurance for a prenatal checkup and they laughed at me. Cancelled. Everything is cancelled. Yes, I thought. That's generally what happens when someone stops paying your bills. Mom had to go back to work. Retail. She stands on her feet 8 hours a day. She cries every night. Dad's pension is being garnished to pay back taxes you used to cover. Back taxes I used to cover. Not back taxes he owed. Back taxes I used to cover, as if that was my responsibility. My job. My obligation. Everyone knows, Morgan. The church. The neighbors. Someone posted the video of the eviction online. We can't show our faces anywhere. The video. Marcus Stone's team must have released the security footage. I hadn't asked them to, but I wasn't surprised. Construction companies document everything for liability purposes. I'm not asking for money. I know you won't give it. First accurate statement in the entire letter. I just wanted you to know that you won. You destroyed us. Are you happy now? I read the letter twice. In the past, these words would have been daggers. They would have triggered an avalanche of guilt, the same guilt that had been weaponized against me for 15 years. I would have been on the phone within minutes, arranging a safe house, wiring money, fixing the mess I didn't make. But sitting there in Kyoto, with the rain falling soft and clean outside, I felt nothing. Not hatred. Hatred requires energy, requires connection, requires caring about the other person's existence enough to wish them harm. This was something far more permanent. It was indifference. It was the quiet quit of the soul. I realized in that moment that I hadn't just sold a condo. I hadn't just cut off financial support. I had done something far more radical. I had retired. I had submitted my resignation from the job of being their daughter. I had laid off the role of family savior. The position was now vacant, and I wasn't accepting applications for rehire. I folded the letter carefully. I didn't burn it, that would be too dramatic, too invested in the symbolism. I simply placed it in the recycling bin next to yesterday's newspapers. But there was one loose end. One piece of unfinished business that had been nagging at me since I got on that plane. I opened my laptop and sent an encrypted message to my attorney in Seattle. Status of the trust funds? The reply came within minutes. Executed. Irrevocable. Education and living expenses for the nephews, accessible at age 18. Trustees appointed. Parents have no access and no knowledge. I closed the laptop. My sister's boys, innocent kids who had the misfortune of being born to parents who saw children as leverage and family as currency, would have a future. They would have college funds. They would have living expenses. They would have the start I never got, the safety net that existed without strings attached. But their parents would never know. The trust was structured so that even if Sabrina and Blake tried to access it, tried to borrow against it, tried to use their own children as collateral the way my parents had used me, they couldn't. The money was locked until the boys turned 18, at which point they could make their own decisions about who deserved their generosity. That was my final act as their family member. Not revenge. Not cruelty. Just ensuring that the cycle stopped. That the next generation wouldn't grow up learning that love was transactional and family was just another word for extraction. I looked out at the garden where rain created ripples in the stone pond, and I understood something fundamental. My new sanctuary wasn't made of brick and glass. It wasn't a location that could be stolen or invaded or violated. It was this. This silence. This peace. This certainty that my resources, my money, my time, my energy, my emotional bandwidth, were finally, irrevocably, mine. They had tried to take my sanctuary. So I gave them the only thing they'd truly earned. Not my home. Not my money. Not my continued support. I gave them consequences. The natural, inevitable, absolutely predictable consequences of treating a human being like an ATM for 15 years. And you know what? I slept better than I had in a decade. No guilt. No second guessing. No wondering if I'd done enough, given enough, sacrificed enough. Because I finally understood the truth that took me 40 years to learn: enough is a decision, not a destination. And I had decided. 1 year after I sold the loft, I was back in Seattle for exactly 48 hours. Not because I missed it. God knows I didn't miss the rain or the traffic or the passive-aggressive culture where everyone says that's interesting when they mean you're wrong. I was back because my company needed me to close a deal with a tech startup that was hemorrhaging money and needed someone who understood risk assessment to save them from themselves. I had changed in that year. Not in obvious ways. I still wore the same professional wardrobe, still carried myself with the same controlled efficiency. But something fundamental had shifted. I'd spent 12 months in Tokyo and Kyoto working with clients who respected boundaries, who understood that professional relationships weren't personal, who paid for services rendered without expecting you to also provide emotional labor and financial bailouts. I'd learned what it felt like to be seen as a person with expertise rather than a resource to be mined. And I'd learned something even more important: I liked myself better without them. On my second day in Seattle, I was walking through Pike Place Market grabbing coffee before my afternoon meeting when I saw her. My mother. Susan Parker, standing at a flower stall, haggling over the price of tulips with an intensity that suggested this purchase actually mattered to her budget now. She looked different. Older, obviously, a year had passed. But it was more than that. She'd lost weight. Not the healthy, intentional kind. The stress kind. The kind that comes from standing on your feet for 8-hour retail shifts and crying yourself to sleep at night. Her clothes were still name brand, but they were worn. Faded. The kind of outfit you get from a Nordstrom Rack clearance sale, not from the personal shopper she used to brag about. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. The smart play was to get my coffee and leave before she saw me. But something made me stop. Maybe curiosity. Maybe some vestigial daughterly instinct that hadn't completely died. Maybe just the analyst in me wanting to see the final data point in this experiment. I walked up behind her. "Those tulips are overpriced," I said. "The stall on the north end has them for $3 less." Susan froze. Actually froze, her hand still reaching for the flowers. Then she turned, and the expression on her face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shock. Hope. Fear. Anger. And finally, something that looked almost like shame. "Morgan," she whispered. We stood there in the middle of Pike Place Market with tourists flowing around us like water around stones, and neither of us knew what to say. Finally, Susan spoke. "You look good." "Tokyo obviously agreed with you." "It did," I said. Nothing more. No explanation. No apology. No invitation for further conversation. She waited for me to elaborate. When I didn't, she tried again. "Your father, Richard, he's been asking about you. Wondering if you'd reached out to your lawyer about..." "No," I said simply. "Whatever he wants, the answer is no." Susan's face tightened. "You don't even know what he was going to ask." "Doesn't matter," I replied. "The answer is still no. It will always be no. You need to understand that and stop waiting for it to change. We're your family, Morgan." "No," I said, and my voice was calm, flat, absolutely certain. "You were my family." Past tense. You stopped being my family the moment you conspired to steal my home using squatters' rights laws. You became something else. Liabilities. And I eliminate liabilities. "That was a misunderstanding," Susan said, and I almost laughed. Almost. "We were just trying to help Sabrina. She needed to face consequences," I interrupted. "You all did. And you're facing them now. I hope you're learning from the experience, but honestly, whether you learn or not isn't my concern anymore." Susan's eyes filled with tears. The same tears she'd used as weapons my entire life. The same tears that had made me write checks and ignore red flags and sacrifice my own well-being for people who saw me as a means to an end. They didn't work anymore. "How can you be so cold?" she asked. "How can you look at your own mother struggling and feel nothing?" "I'm not cold," I said. "I'm just not responsible for fixing problems I didn't create. You have a $47,000 credit card bill because you spent $47,000 on things you didn't need. Dad's pension is being garnished because he didn't pay taxes he owed. Sabrina lost her insurance because she couldn't afford the premiums once I stopped paying them. These are natural consequences. This is just reality catching up with choices you all made. We made those choices because we thought we had support," Susan said, her voice rising now. "We thought we had family who would be there for us." "You did have family," I said quietly. "You had a daughter who paid your bills for 15 years. Who funded your cruises and your shopping addiction and your son-in-law's failed businesses. Who asked for nothing in return except basic respect. And you couldn't even give me that. You tried to steal my home, Mom. You stood in that dining room and planned how to use squatters' rights to make sure I couldn't get you out. You laughed about changing the locks while I was overseas. You chose theft over asking. So yes, you had family. And you destroyed that relationship all by yourselves. I picked up my coffee from the counter where the barista had set it. I have a meeting. I need to go. Morgan, please. Susan reached for my arm and I stepped back. Not aggressively. Just a simple step that put space between us. A boundary. Physical. Visible. Non-negotiable. Don't contact me again, I said. Don't call. Don't write. Don't show up at my work. I've moved on, and you need to do the same. Find a debt consolidation service. Get financial counseling. Figure out how to live within your means. But do it without me. That chapter is closed. What about the boys? Susan asked, playing her final card. What about your nephews? Don't you care about them? The boys have a trust fund that will pay for college and living expenses starting when they turn 18, I said. It's irrevocable and protected. You can't touch it. Blake can't touch it. Sabrina can't borrow against it. It exists solely for them, set up by trustees who have their best interests at heart. So yes, I care about them. I care enough to make sure they don't end up like you. I walked away. I heard her call my name once, twice, but I didn't turn around. I wove through the market crowds, past the fish throwers and flower stalls and tourists taking selfies, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Just relief that the conversation had finally happened and I'd said exactly what needed to be said without apologizing, without softening it, without trying to make her feel better about the consequences of her own actions. The meeting that afternoon went well. I saved the tech startup about $2 million by identifying redundancies in their expense structure and convincing their CEO that sometimes the risky move is not expanding faster, but consolidating what you have. They offered me a retention bonus to stay on as a consultant. I accepted. On my flight back to Tokyo that night, I pulled out my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding for a year. I looked at my family on social media. Not because I missed them. Not because I was reconsidering my decision. But because the analyst in me needed to see the full arc of the data. Richard had a Facebook page he barely used. His most recent post was from 3 months ago, a rant about union politics that had 17 likes and a concerning number of spelling errors. He looked older in his profile picture. Grayer. Tired. But not broken. Just diminished. Like someone who'd been playing a game on easy mode his entire life and suddenly had to face normal difficulty. Susan's Instagram was private now, but I could see her bio had changed. Instead of living my best life, it now said one day at a time. I didn't request to follow. I didn't need to see inside that particular circus. Sabrina's Facebook was a masterclass in performative victimhood. Post after post about how hard single motherhood was. Wait, single? I scrolled back. 3 months ago, Blake had moved out. The post announcing it was vintage Sabrina. Sometimes you realize the person you married isn't the person you thought they were. Taking time to focus on me and my babies. God has a plan. God has a plan. The woman who'd conspired to steal my home was now invoking divine providence. The comments were mostly supportive, people who didn't know the full story offering prayers and encouragement and suggesting she was better off without him. One commenter asked what happened, and Sabrina's response was perfect, just grew apart. Sometimes love isn't enough when someone can't handle responsibility. Someone can't handle responsibility. Blake couldn't handle responsibility. Not the $14,000 in debt he owed. Not the business ventures he'd failed at. Not the wife and children he'd helped bring into the world. Blake couldn't handle responsibility. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I closed the laptop. I'd seen enough. They were surviving. Not thriving, but surviving. learning to live within their means, or at least learning to live with the consequences of not having someone else subsidize their excess. And that was enough. I wasn't responsible for their happiness. I wasn't responsible for their comfort. I wasn't even responsible for their basic survival. They were adults who'd made choices and were now living with those choices. My only responsibility was to myself. To build a life that reflected my values, that honored my work, that protected my peace. 2 months later, I was in my Tokyo apartment when I got an email from Julian Reeves. The subject line read, "Pioneer Square Project, Grand Opening." The email contained photos of my former loft. Except it wasn't my loft anymore. It was unrecognizable. Julian had done exactly what I'd authorized, a complete gut renovation. The brick I'd lovingly restored was gone, replaced by sleek white walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. The original hardwood was covered by polished concrete. The industrial aesthetic I'd created had been transformed into minimalist modern luxury. It was beautiful. Objectively beautiful. And I felt absolutely nothing looking at it. "Thought you'd want to see the final product," Julian's email read. "Sold for $680,000, nearly double what you got. Your early exit actually worked out perfectly with the market timing. Hope Tokyo is treating you well. If you ever want to invest in Seattle real estate again, you've got my number." $680,000. He'd sold it for nearly double what he'd paid me. In another life, I might have felt regret. Might have calculated the opportunity cost, the profit I'd left on the table. But that wasn't why I'd sold. I didn't sell for maximum profit. I sold for maximum peace. And peace, I'd learned, was priceless. I closed the email without responding. That night, I met up with some colleagues from the Tokyo office at an izakaya in Shinjuku. We drank sake and ate yakitori and talked about work, about the city, about our lives. One of them, a woman named Yuki who worked in our compliance department, asked me about my family. "Do they visit you here?" she asked. "My parents came last month. It was exhausting." I smiled. "No, they don't visit. We're not close." "That must be hard," Yuki said sympathetically. "Family estrangement is difficult." "Actually," I said, surprising myself with how true the words felt, "it's the easiest thing I've ever done. The hard part was staying connected to people who were destroying me. Leaving was simple." Yuki looked at me with understanding. "In Japan, we have a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. But sometimes, the nail that sticks out needs to pull itself out completely and find a different board." "Exactly," I said. 6 months after that, I was promoted to Regional Director of Risk Assessment for the entire Asia-Pacific region. The promotion came with a significant raise, a corner office in downtown Tokyo, and the kind of professional respect I'd spent my entire career building toward. My boss, during the promotion announcement, said something that stuck with me: "Morgan, you have an exceptional ability to identify liabilities and eliminate them before they become catastrophic problems. That skill is rare and valuable. It's why you're the best at what you do. Identify liabilities and eliminate them." It was true professionally. It had finally become true personally. I celebrated that promotion alone in my apartment with a bottle of expensive sake and a view of Tokyo Tower lit up against the night sky. I didn't call anyone to share the news. Didn't post about it on social media. Didn't need external validation or celebration. The accomplishment was enough. I was enough. 1 year after that promotion, 3 years after I sold the loft and walked away from my family, I was back in Seattle again. Another business trip. Another 48-hour turnaround. And I found myself walking through Pioneer Square, past the building that used to be mine. I stood across the street, looking up at the windows where I used to live. The lights were on in several units. Julian had converted the building into 4 separate luxury condos. Through one window, I could see a young couple decorating a Christmas tree. Through another, someone was cooking dinner. Normal people living normal lives in a space that used to represent everything I'd built and everything I'd lost. Except I hadn't lost anything. Not really. I'd shed dead weight. I'd cut out a cancer. I'd performed a necessary amputation to save the rest of the body. And standing there on the rain-slicked sidewalk 3 years later, I realized something profound. I didn't miss it. Not the loft. Not the life I'd had when I lived there. Not the version of myself who'd thought that being useful was the same as being loved. A text came through on my phone. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made it immediately clear who it was. Morgan, this is your father. I got your number from your company directory. I wanted to reach out because I've been in therapy and my therapist says I need to make amends. I realize now that we treated you poorly. We took advantage of your generosity. I'm sorry. If you're willing, I'd like to have a conversation about rebuilding our relationship. I've changed. We all have. Please consider giving us another chance. Dad, I read the message twice. Looked at it from every angle like I would a risky investment prospectus. Analyzed the language. I've been in therapy, establishing credibility. My therapist says I need to make amends, shifting responsibility to an authority figure. We treated you poorly, passive construction, no specific acknowledgement of actions. We took advantage of your generosity, reframing theft and manipulation as merely taking advantage. I've changed a claim without evidence. Please consider giving us another chance, the ask. The whole thing was a masterclass in manipulation disguised as accountability. 3 years ago, this message would have worked. I would have wanted so desperately to believe that change was possible, that therapy had fixed what was broken, that we could somehow salvage a relationship from the wreckage. But 3 years of peace had given me clarity. And the clarity was this: changed people don't lead with what their therapist told them to do. Changed people don't make amends via text message asking for another chance. Changed people demonstrate change through sustained behavioral patterns over time, not through a single message that reads like a homework assignment from a counseling session. Changed people respect boundaries even when it costs them something. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another one. Deleted that too. Finally, I settled on the only response that was both honest and kind. I'm glad you're in therapy. I hope it helps you build healthier relationships going forward. But I'm not interested in rebuilding our relationship. I wish you well, but please don't contact me again. I blocked the number before I could see if he responded. Because here's the thing about boundaries, they're not negotiable. They're not something you maintain only when it's comfortable or when the other person accepts them gracefully. Boundaries are the lines you draw to protect yourself, and protecting yourself sometimes means disappointing people who think they deserve access to you. That night, I had dinner with an old friend from grad school, Melissa, who'd stayed in Seattle and built a successful career in urban planning. We met at a trendy restaurant in Capitol Hill, and somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, she asked the question everyone eventually asks: so, do you regret it? Cutting off your family? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not the reflexive response, but the deep, honest answer. No, I said finally. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they made choices that led to that outcome. I regret that I have parents and a sister I'll probably never speak to again. But I don't regret the decision itself. That decision saved my life. Saved your life? Melissa raised an eyebrow. That's pretty dramatic. Is it? I asked. I was financing their entire existence while they plotted to steal my home. I was paying for their mistakes while they mocked me behind my back. I was destroying my own financial security and emotional well-being to prop up people who saw me as a resource, not a person. If I'd stayed, where would I be now? How much more would I have given? When would it have been enough? Melissa nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I guess from the outside, it seems extreme. But you lived it. Here's what I learned, I said, leaning forward. Everyone wants to talk about family loyalty and forgiveness and second chances. But nobody wants to talk about what you're supposed to do when your family is actively harmful. When they're not just flawed or difficult, but genuinely destructive to your well-being. Society tells us that family is everything, that you're supposed to tolerate anything from family because blood is thicker than water. But that's bullshit. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, Melissa said. It means chosen bonds are stronger than biological ones. Exactly, I said. And I chose to bond with myself. I chose to be loyal to my own well-being. I chose to give myself the second chance at a peaceful life that I would have never had if I'd stayed connected to them. We finished dinner, and as we were leaving, Melissa hugged me and said, "You know what? You're not cold. You're not heartless. You're just someone who finally learned that self-preservation isn't selfish. I'm proud of you." I flew back to Tokyo the next morning, and on the flight, I pulled out my laptop and did something I'd been thinking about for months. I started writing. Not a memoir, God, no. But a guide. A practical, no-nonsense guide for people who were in the situation I'd been in. People who were being financially exploited by family members. People who were told that setting boundaries was selfish. People who needed permission to save themselves. I called it Strategic Exit, a risk analyst's guide to leaving toxic family systems. It was 50 pages of practical advice. How to document financial exploitation. How to set up trusts for children without giving parents access. How to recognize manipulation tactics. How to plan an exit strategy. How to deal with the guilt that comes with choosing yourself. How to build a life that's actually yours. I published it independently through a small digital press that specialized in self-help and psychology. I didn't use my full name, just M. King, Strategic Risk Consultant. I didn't promote it heavily. Didn't do interviews or podcasts or social media campaigns. I just put it out there for the people who needed it. 6 months later, it had sold 10,000 copies. The reviews were almost all 5 stars. But the review that stuck with me was this one: "I've been funding my sister's lifestyle for 8 years and feeling guilty every time I thought about stopping. This book gave me permission to save myself. I'm implementing the exit strategy now. For the first time in years, I can breathe. Thank you." That's when I knew that what I'd been through wasn't just personal trauma. It was a pattern. A widespread, under-discussed pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that happens in families everywhere, every day. And people needed to know that walking away wasn't cruel. It was survival. Present day. I'm sitting in my Tokyo apartment as I record this. It's been 5 years since that Christmas Eve when I stood outside my parents' house and heard them plotting to steal my home. 5 years since I made the decision that changed everything. My family hasn't contacted me in over a year. The book I wrote has sold over 50,000 copies. I've been promoted twice. I have friends, colleagues, a community of people who respect my boundaries and value my presence without expecting me to bankrupt myself for their benefit. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder what my family is doing. If Richard finally figured out how to manage money without using me as a backup plan. If Susan ever addressed her shopping addiction or just found new credit cards to max out. If Sabrina learned anything from losing everything, or if she just found someone else to exploit. If Blake ever took responsibility for his failures or if he's still blaming the universe for his problems. But wondering isn't the same as caring. And it definitely isn't the same as regretting my choice. Because here's the truth that I need you, yes, you watching this right now, to understand: you don't owe anyone access to your life, your money, or your peace. Not even family. Especially not family who treat you like an ATM with no daily withdrawal limit. The people who love you don't conspire to steal from you. They don't laugh about changing your locks while you're overseas. They don't plan to erase everything you've built because they want what you have but don't want to work for it themselves. Real family, chosen family, blood family, whatever form it takes, respects you, supports you, celebrates your success instead of seeing it as their emergency fund. If your family doesn't do that, if they see you as a resource instead of a person, you have permission to leave. You have permission to protect yourself. You have permission to build a life that's actually yours. And when they call you cold, heartless, selfish, and they will call you all of those things because that's what manipulators do when their targets escape, remember this: self-preservation isn't selfish. It's survival. The people who call you selfish for setting boundaries are the same people who benefited from you having none. So let me ask you something, and I really want you to think about it. Are you in your own version of this story right now? Are you funding someone else's life while they disrespect yours? Are you the family ATM, the emergency contact, the backup plan, the solution to everyone's problems except your own? Have you normalized being treated as a resource instead of a person? If you answered yes to any of those questions, what are you going to do about it? Because here's the thing, nobody's coming to save you. No magical intervention is going to make your family suddenly respect your boundaries or appreciate your sacrifices or stop seeing you as a means to their ends. The only person who can save you is you. And it starts with one simple word: no. No, you can't move into my home. No, I won't pay your bills anymore. No, I'm not responsible for your poor financial decisions. No, I don't owe you an explanation. No, I won't feel guilty for prioritizing my own well-being. Just no. One syllable. 2 letters. The most powerful word in the English language. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to walk away from family to save yourself? Are you in that situation right now and not sure what to do? Or do you think I'm wrong? Do you think family loyalty should override everything else, even when it's destroying you? I want to hear from you because these conversations matter. These stories matter. Your experience matters. And if this story helped you, if it gave you permission to consider that maybe you deserve better, that maybe setting boundaries isn't betrayal, that maybe choosing yourself isn't selfish, then share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who's being financially exploited and doesn't know how to escape. Share it with someone who thinks they're alone in this experience. Because they're not alone. I wasn't alone. And neither are you. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this. Real stories about real people who faced impossible situations and made the hard choices. Stories about boundaries and consequences and what happens when you finally stand up for yourself. And remember this, 5 years ago, my family tried to take my sanctuary. They thought they could steal my home, my peace, my sense of self. They thought I would just adjust like I always had. They were wrong. I didn't give them my sanctuary. I gave them something else. Something they'd earned through 15 years of exploitation and disrespect. I gave them consequences. Natural, inevitable, absolutely predictable consequences. And you know what? I'd do it again. Every single time. Because the life I built on the other side of that decision is the life I always deserved. And so is yours. Thanks for listening. Now go build your sanctuary. And this time, don't let anyone take it from you.